If you're preparing for an interview and need information on how to research, talk about your qualifications, and how to overall communicate your value to your future employer, then stay tuned as the Lenore coaching team and I give you tips that will change your life. Greetings, I'm Dannita Trice and I am with Tips Change Lives. We have covered mindset and the importance of mindset to build your confidence or to keep you confident during the interview preparation process. Now we have arrived at the portion of the before and after the interview series where we are talking about the sales components or how you are communicating value. And we'll talk about the difference between sales and value in just a minute. We're also going to talk about the research to do prior to an interview. And finally, use stories, or what I entitle use stories, or those elements or the qualifications that you have and how you actually talk about them during the interview process. So I do want to sit on the concept of sales. When you're going to an interview, you're actually going to a meeting during which you are going to be giving information and you're also going to be receiving information. And as a matter of fact, you're actually going to be going to a sales meeting. So a meeting in which you would, quote, sell yourself to a potential employer, and they're going to be selling themselves on you too. But I want to reframe that a bit further. I'm going to call this a value add meeting. You are going to be talking about the value that you're going to add to that employer, and the employer is going to be talking about the value that they can add to you. Some of the best salespeople are actually those that don't just try to sell you something in exchange for goods. They're actually talking to you about the value that that product or service is going to add to your life. In other words, they're trying to make you see, they're trying to envision your life or help you to envision your life with this product in your life and how it can change your life for the better and how your life is going to be forever enhanced because of it, or how your life is going to be made easier, how you're going to save money, how you're going to save time, how you are going to be almost a brand new creature because of this product. And with that being said, that value that's added, you almost can't put a price tag on being able to enhance your life. And so we're moved to either go right into our pockets or right into our savings to go ahead and pay for that product outright. Or if we don't have the means right then, we're going to go and take out a loan, or either we're going to save up. But all of that to say that you or we will make a way to get that product or service because we have that much belief that that product or service is going to add value to our life. Same difference in an interview. You're not trying to just sell something. You're not just a body in a seat that can do something. You are communicating the value that you will be adding to that organization. You are making your interview team feel that before they met you or when they met you, they met the solution to their problems. And the way to get there is, one, by researching the company and understanding what it is that the company needs and also what the department needs that you're joining and why your position is the solution to those problems. And two, thinking back over your experiences, your qualifications, and your interests, and being able to communicate the value that you will add based on your repertoire of experience and interests, and how that can fulfill the needs of this organization or within that department. That is how salespeople or value-added people move us to make a sale or make a purchase. We want your employers to purchase you, literally purchase you with a salary, right? But really have faith that you are going to be the best candidate for the job. So now we'll pivot to talk with Lorayah and Quintrel Lenore of Lenore Coaching. And first, we'll start with the research that you will need to do in order to position yourself as a top candidate. So once your mindset is together, you can really see yourself doing it, having that confidence. Research. I also believe that research is a very important part of the process. Research on external factors such as the company, etc., and also internal searching within yourself. Because sometimes we oftentimes don't even know, or we don't take time to think about what our experience has been, or can't recall it to our mind. So can you all tell me what's your take on research as it pertains to getting prepared for a job interview?
Yeah, I love to research. So this is like my favorite part. You really, I mean, this is a job that you're going to work 40 hours or more a week for a long time. So you want to make sure that the organization that you are applying to aligns with who you are or who you want to be. And so by researching, you know, like you said, go to the website, go to their About Us, just Google them, go under news, see what, how their company comes to light in some, you know, the latest articles. Go on LinkedIn, do the informational interview, and let's talk to some individuals who work at the institute, at the organization. And it could be, you know, if you're a college senior, you may talk to some alumni who are at that organization to see, so what was it like for you onboarding? How has it been after your, you know, probationary period? What type of professional development resources do they have for you? So all of that is really important. And even, you know, if you are at your point in life where you want to grow your family or anything like that, go to HR on their website, and you may be able to read what type of benefits they have. Do they have community service leave? You know, what are some things that are important to you? And then really researching that. So that's my take on it. And
yeah, for sure. And you hit it on the head. I think one, framing this up from an internal and external perspective, Dannita, you know, internally, you know, you're asking really like, am I a fit? It's kind of like doing that needs assessment for your own values. So Lorayah talked about some stuff related to work-life balance and benefits. So doing stuff like that from an internal perspective. I think also like you alluded to company culture, but maybe that leadership, that the leadership style or the communication style of the folks that you'll be collaborating with. Externally, I think, you know, there's always information about a company, whether it be, you know, the mission and values, you know, the structural, so you can see the hierarchy of the organization. But I would just say framing it up from internal and external is just an easy way to synthesize whether I'm a fit for this company.
What I really love that you all are backing into also is that it's more than just that position with that candidate. When you're preparing, you are preparing by doing some real introspection to say, what is it that I'm really seeking? What type of lifestyle do I need in my life right now? I'm not saying, not necessarily what lifestyle would I be more comfortable with, because certainly if you have ambitious goals, you have to step outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But what is it that I need, and what is it that what am I trying to achieve? And so whereas you're going on an interview, you're preparing so that you look like you did prepare when you got to the interview. But you also want to interview the company, not patronize. I'm telling you from a past recruiter's perspective, don't come to the interview cocky now. Don't do that.
Right.
But ask the thoughtful questions to figure out, can I work with these people? Do I see myself working with the people that are interviewing me, because sometimes there are telltale signs that maybe this isn't the place that you want to accept an offer at. Is it the way that, by the way that they even conducted or led up to the interview process or inviting you to an interview? Were they sloppy in the way that they did that?
Yep.
Were they disorganized in the way that they did that? Those are indicators of how that organization does things. And if you're okay with that, fine. If it was an extenuating circumstance, okay. But you yourself have to say, is it worth me taking the leap right now?
Mm-hmm.
So, also, long story short, doing some introspection to really put in perspective, is this career something that I think that I want to do and can do right now? And also knowing that sometimes you do just have to take a position sometimes to meet an immediate goal. So say, for example, if it is a monetary decision, but please don't go to the interview and say, I just want this because of the money.
Right.
So, no, that's not good too, because we're building careers. We're not just, we're not, and a part of building career is to know how to finesse in situations. I'm not saying lie. No, don't lie. Please don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
But also know how to say what you're saying. Say it clearly, but also do it with tact.
Yep.
Right? So there will be times where you might have to take on a position to get to your next level. So as you heard, research is an important portion of the interview preparation process. Through research, you'll realize what value you can add to that employer, and you'll get to know them a little bit more. So now we'll talk about what I call you stories. So you stories is essentially stories about you, about your previous experience that you will speak about during the interview. So now here are some tips on how to communicate about your previous experiences when you're asked questions during the interview. Stories. One thing that I feel is really important is to brainstorm what stories you're going to tell. Again, stories are not lies. Stories simply mean that you've had a million experiences since the time that you started working, keyword working. When you're in, and the stories that you'll tell, pretty much you're going to be asked a question during the interview, and you want to rely on some type of situation from your past in order to answer the question. And so what I'm saying with that is to tell a story. You're going to tell a story about your past. Experience in the job, not what happened with your boyfriend. Literally, I've had it happen. Don't tell me about your boyfriend. I don't care about that. I want to know what happened with your colleague. And that is what most interviewers are looking for nowadays. So I want to hear you all's perspective on stories and how someone can begin to think back on their experience and generate stories and put those together. So yeah, let me just hear from you guys.
Yeah, and so my wife has a good strategy, but I think going into like answering, storytelling and having a narrative in the interview process, oftentimes you're going to get those behavioral questions, right? And like you just said it, what the interviewer, what they're screening for is to see how you behave in a certain situation. And so when you think about that, we talk often about using the STAR technique. And so that's an easy way of telling the story. It's a framework. I'm a person that has a very poor memory, but using the STAR technique, it's easy for me to recall an instance. So what that acronym stands for is situation. It's the first S, and then T is task, action, A, and then R is the result. And so that's an easy framework to sort of remember to help you tell a story. And to give sort of context, and I pass the mic to my wife, is like for the STAR technique, you want to use any instances. So it can be a project, it can be an instance where you work with a partner, a colleague, a supervisor. For experienced professionals, it could be something at work, but maybe also professional organization. It could be, on an instance on a cross-functional team. If I'm a student, it can be a course project, a class, a specific class. So you have a lot of context for drawing a situation and telling a story. But I think my wife has a great example of using a resume for having a narrative.
And just to add before I share my example is on your resume for each bullet, not each bullet, but each job, each leadership opportunity that you have, you should have at least one STAR example. And as you prepare for the interview, just have that written down in the corner so that you are ready to go. But one that I wanted to share, when I first started advising right after grad school, we advised 5,000 business students, and the issue was we didn't have a scheduler. And so, we were emailing back and forth, and I just came into this new organization. I said, this is not efficient. I want to meet with students. I don't want to email. So that was the situation. And so the task was, I wanted to find a better way to be efficient in scheduling. So action was looking at so many different platforms, trying it out myself, learning the one that we decided to go with, educating the rest of the advisors on how to use that program. And we fully implemented it about 6 months after I started that process. And the result was we were able to see more students. The platform that we went with even allowed the capability to send reminders out without us having to do it. We were able to see how many students that we were seeing before. I think it was like a clicker, like every student, it was like a clicker, but now we actually got to see who came, what they came for. And so, data is really important. So, that's a way to utilize the STAR method and being concise. And that's the key. We want to tell our story, but we want to make sure it's concise when we're in the interview. So
beautiful. And I want to reiterate that one more time. That was an excellent example of how to tell a story very concisely. And I'll say it again. If you did not write this down, please write this down. STAR, situation, task, action, result. To really talk about the problem that you solve. Because in that concise story, and I will confess, I'm not always the most concise with my story, but in that job interview, be concise, y'all. You are showing your leadership. You are showing how you approach things. You're showing your thought process, all of those things. So thank you all for bringing that out. So what if you're having trouble coming up with new stories or remembering your qualifications and your experience? Here's some tips for you. So what if someone says, well, I don't think I have any stories. Lorayah, you gave a great point that every one of the bullet points on your resume, you should be able to tell a story about that if you assert that you had that experience. But what if someone is having trouble coming up with those stories or thinking back on their experience to come up with what they could say during the job interview?
Absolutely. So I think a big part of job search and interview process is self-reflection. And so I think there's a variety of sort of practices. So free writing is an easy tool to sort of just brain dump, get different ideas out there. So I would certainly think that's a way that somebody can sort of recall instances. But some folks are external processors. So this might mean I need to sit down with mom or dad. I need to sit down with my best friend, my partner, somebody that you can just trust to just brain dump. They don't even got to be listening to you. I think just externally saying, all right, you know, I have this interview question of tell me about my strengths and weaknesses. Let me just sit down and process this. So that might be a good strategy to recall a story or a narrative. But like my wife mentioned, like we all have stories. I think it's just a matter of practicing and recalling what those instances are.
And I also think using the people around you in the workplace. So, you know, going to your colleagues and just processing, you know, take the job description and looking at the job description and say, okay, they want somebody who does this, this, and this. Then like processing with your boss or your colleague and say, you know, have you noticed that I demonstrated these qualities or did something like this? And when you're in the midst, sometimes it's really easy to have that tunnel vision and just completely forget like, oh yeah, I did that. But you know, that could be a mentor, it could be somebody, you know, close to you who watches you every day or hears what you're doing every day, but they can help you articulate. And then also, I mean, coaching helps with that as well. You know, right. If you aren't able to articulate your resume, because that is a living, you know, you did all of those things. So there's a disconnect. And so maybe having somebody unbiased can help as well.
Absolutely. So I love that plug for coaching.
Right.
Yes, we're going to get to that. I want everybody to know exactly how to get in touch with you guys.
Okay, all right. I understand. Some of you may not have the relationship with your supervisor or with your colleagues to ask them to help you with interview preparation. I get that. Here's some additional tips to consider around that.
There are a couple of things that really stood out to me. One would be about going around to your colleagues and even to your boss to say, here is a job that I'm applying for that doesn't have anything to do here with here. In what instances do you recommend that people do that? And in what instances do you recommend that a person not do that?
Yeah, so not gonna be, this is a challenging question. And so this is all about the relationships. And so one strategy that I've learned, that I've grown to learn, certainly was harder early on, was just intentional building that rapport with my supervisor right out the gates. I'm gonna spend 40 hours or more. I'm gonna spend more time at work with my supervisor, my colleagues, compared to my family members. So I just say that to say, I was strategic as I got older to think about, like, I'm not gonna be here forever, but I need to make sure that I develop this relationship. So, you know, one of the best practices that I've had over the last 5 or 6 years of my career is, as I'm looking for new jobs, even as I apply, I share that with my supervisor. I think in instances where you do a lot of programming and there's a lot of, I say, moving parts, if you were to leave and you feel like the work that you do is going to take a while to sort of get up to speed for whomever is coming in, it's important to sort of communicate you transitioning well in advance. And so I say that as an example. That might be an instance where you should communicate with your supervisor, your hiring manager, that you're considering this new opportunity. On the flip side, it's kind of tricky when I think about, you know, where you don't want to share that you're applying for a role. Obviously, it's really built on that relationship. You know, whether there's some tension there, it doesn't necessarily have to be. But if this isn't, maybe you're going to a company that's a competitor, like working in higher education is harder to think about because you're not directly competing with other universities. But if I sell a product and, you know, like it's a very competitive market for that product, and I go to a rival organization, that might be an instance where I might not share with my direct supervisor. But that's sort of what's on the top of my mind.
So I actually did this for not my last job, but the job before that. You know, I had been there almost 5 years, and I had a, you know, good relationship with my boss. And for the job I have now, I printed off my the job description. I highlighted the things that I thought that the skills I had, and then I went to her and I said, you know, this opportunity looks really interesting. Do you want to process with me? And she was open, but I think it's because I kind of set that stage. Like prior to that, like maybe a few months into the job, I would schedule recurrent like professional development like meetings. Like she knew that I always wanted to either move up or move out. You know, I didn't want to just stay complacent. So I think I did it in a respectful way where it wasn't as though, you know, I'm always trying to leave or anything, but I had really dedicated myself to the job. And I think she kind of knew that there wasn't anywhere to kind of move up in, you know, in that specific area. So she was really open to having that conversation about, no, I think this could be a good area for you. Here are some, you know, of the challenge areas, but these other things counteract, and I feel like you'd be very strong, you know, in that. So it really, really does depend on your relationship with your boss and how professional you are with bringing in that information, because it also could have the opportunity to be a conversation with, well, why are you looking, you know, for another job? Or if you're developing your resume and you're having that conversation with your boss, maybe there are areas within your current position where they can help connect you to like, oh, well, there's this committee. Maybe that can help you. Or, you know, I heard that this position is going to open in a couple of months, you know, just to have that conversation. But you really do have to have a good relationship and trust that it won't be held against you or anything like that. But if you're doing the good work, I don't see why it wouldn't be a good situation.
Nice, nice. Well, I appreciate you all sharing that perspective for sure. And I mean, you've given me some additional food for thought also. I can just imagine that some of our viewers are like, what? But you all did a really great job of unpacking that, and even had me over here like, maybe we should talk a little bit more about that, building rapport once you do get onto the job, because it is very important to build an authentic rapport with your supervisor and with the people that you engage with. So thank you for going down this path.
All right, we're in the home stretch. Here are a few more tips on communicating your value during the interview.
As far as getting ready again for that job, so if someone doesn't know what stories are, I really love how you said do some brainstorming, talk to people. If you're uncomfortable talking with your colleagues about what you're doing, then, or that you're specifically applying, then maybe ask them, what are some of the things that you feel like I do particularly well? And they'll be honest with you about that, at least. They won't go into, you know, well, I don't think you're good at X, Y, and Z. They'll tell you what they think you're good at authentically. And also others that are in your network, you can ask them that same question also. So those are some really great strategies for really thinking back to what it is that you've done. Something else I'd recommend is if you think about times when you felt proud of yourself. So we're not trying to say that you're, you know, some people are really, sometimes it's uncomfortable to call out our value because it makes us feel like we're being pompous or too self-absorbed. However, in career, you have to be able to articulate what value you have. So I challenge you to think about, in what instances were you proud of yourself? Did you find that somebody else found value in what you did? They said, oh man, you did a really good job, or this was such a really great experience. And really draw from that to write down that specific instance and put it back and challenge yourself to put it in the STAR method. So that you can talk about it in those terms, and really concise terms. That this is what I was doing, here's the action that I took, or here's what the problem was at hand of what I was doing, here's the action I took, and here's what resulted from my action. So,
Right.
Really,
I want to add, as you were talking, I think something else that helped me be able to articulate my skills, using the STAR method, but also strengths. Like, so different assessments helped me to look at myself outside of myself and like, oh, so my top strength is restorative. And so looking at it from that lens, I was able to look at my job in ways that I felt like I accomplished something, and put the two together. My second strength is empathy, and so just building the relationships is something that I do really well. So definitely assessments also can help you articulate or do some self-reflection, which helps to articulate your story.
And that's a wrap. We've talked about how you can align your value with that of the employers if you're truly interested in that employer. We've talked about the importance of your selling yourself, or reframing that to how you can best add value or communicate your value. We've talked about the research to do, and we've even shown you tactics for communicating your qualifications during the interview process. If you need to rewatch this and take those notes, and stay tuned, because that next episode we'll be talking about how you can organize all of that information on one sheet of paper as a cheat sheet, which I call an interview preparation sheet. And we'll also talk about the questions you should ask during the interview process. Stay tuned.